the EMC and through this task force, she's just been so invaluable and behind the scenes, but providing such an important service to the county and to our work in documenting what we're talking about, doing so efficiently and with a really great spirit. So, Maureen, I know you're not on this call, but you'll be missed. And in the meantime, I think the county is looking to hire someone. Is that right, Don?
Yeah, I believe so.
Great.
Yep.
So we'll muddle on without her. Do we, Don, do we need to do the formalities of a roll and also the minutes?
Yes, I'm keeping track as everybody signs on, but I have a few people. Supervisor Collins, I don't see him on here yet.
He said he'd be late. He had a conflict he notified, but he'll be here.
Susan Flam, don't see her yet. Dan Haas. Tistria, Supervisor Hoatling.
She's not going to be with us today.
Okay. Kara Humphrey. Claudia Kenny. Supervisor is not going to be here. I'm here. Patrice is not going to be here. She has a conflict. Jolene. Nope. Jody Rail. Don't see him. Bruce Schenker. And Matt Stinchcomb said he would not be able to come here. And I see Tara just signed on. I think Audrey was here. I don't see Christina on here yet. I believe she will. Hopefully she'll be on here. I also have a couple extra invites. Who's
Josh Cohen.
Yeah, a couple of folks had asked that are being considered or have been maybe appointed for our task force next year. Lee Jameson and Joshua Cohen, who I see just signed on. I don't see Lee on here yet, but they are maybe appointed come January or are contemplating being appointed to our group. So they asked to join us too.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Don, are you telling us we need to be on good behavior?
Yes.
So let's do the minutes real fast. If anyone has any comments on the minutes that Don sent out earlier this week. Otherwise, we'll take a motion and a second to adopt the minutes.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Okay, Bill and John seconds. Anyone opposed, speak up or raise your hand or make a ruckus. Great, unanimously approved. Do we have an update on the timing and the logistics of, we're in December, our last meeting of the year, and of this group. So do we know if we're meeting in January or, as this group, or will we have the new task force appointed and informed and notified by then?
I asked Patrice about that, and I believe the Board of Supervisors organizational meeting is tentatively scheduled for January 2nd. I believe, Brenda, if you can correct me if I'm wrong. So that'll be before our January meeting. So if things go as planned, we should be all set to go with our first meeting in January, I believe, David.
Well, the first meeting would normally be the first Thursday of each month, which would be the 4th. So 2 days later, it doesn't give people a lot of notice one way or the other. So we're just assuming there'll be a new group, and then there'll be a meeting on that 2 days later, and we'll inform people then.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know the exact logistics of it, but yeah, everybody should be informed right after the Board of Supervisors meeting that they've been appointed. And
so, Don, I have one question. This is not going to go through committee. It's not going to go through county government because county government.
I don't believe so, Brenda. I mean, that's.
I have a conversation with Matt. I hope today or tomorrow. Why don't I confirm with him and send you, the two of you, an email? How's that?
Okay. Great. And then we'll communicate to everyone here, but I just want to, to make sure people are aware. I know many of us will continue and some of us won't. but it's a small community and we all work together in a lot of different projects and organizations and committees and whatnot. So I just want to take the moment to say to this inaugural group of task force members, we started this and we hope there's a long and bright future. I think there will be, of the work that can be done through this task force on behalf of the county. And I just want to thank everyone for their time. We've gotten a lot accomplished in the last couple of years, never nearly enough for what needs to happen, but it's a beginning. And I want to thank everyone for their volunteerism and their time and their good spirit and energy. So thanks. I wanted to also take a moment before we jump into the agenda to just reflect on where we're at in terms of global warming. It is a meeting going on in Dubai this week of the COP, the Conference of the Parties, which is the annual meeting or the regular meetings of the nations coming together to deal with climate change. The last significant agreement was in Paris in 2015 or 2016. And that's what led to the Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement was a commitment from the different countries in the world to try to maintain an increase, a limit on the increase in temperature globally to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And the goals that the US have and New York State has, California, many countries throughout the world in terms of a plan to actually get there, electrifying the grid, renewables, getting fossil fuels off the grid, transitions of building technology, transportation technology, all the natural climate solutions, all of those things are pegged to these goals, which is essentially carbon neutral by mid-century and a long way toward that goal by 2030, 2035, 2040. Those dates are coming very quickly. So as the some of the world's leaders meet in Dubai, unfortunately, many of them on private jets flying in there with a huge footprint of that meeting itself, we're concerned about whether we're making that progress. And I thought it would be an important making enough progress toward those goals. And it does seem like we're not. So I just wanted to bring this up to kind of frame what we're doing in this county, but also update people. So according to a lot of reports come out this time, right, around these COPs, these meetings, a lot of science comes out and a lot of reports that can release it to the public while people are paying attention. 2023 is the hottest year on record. They've just declared this week, 174-year record or so, going back to the middle of the 19th century of modern temperature records. This last decade, from 2000 to 2010 to 2020, is the hottest decade on record. The second hottest was the previous decade, and the third hottest was the decade before that. There's been a cumulative 1.46 degrees Celsius increase from pre-industrial levels in temperature. We're pretty much at that threshold of 1.5 degrees right now. They estimate that we have 7 years to really, and these are goals that are not, if we go to 1.6 or 1.4 or 2, it's just it's a spectrum, right? This is not it's not black and white. These are not, everything's fine below and everything above it is disaster, right? It's just the more we put this off into the future and the slower we are in bending the curve of emissions, the larger the impacts. And so we use these numbers to set goals that everyone can rally around. So I think everyone understands that. But we, since Paris, or in Paris in 2015, emissions were at that time projected to be increasing over the next 10 years or so, 16%. Today, that rate of increase has dropped. So that's good news. So the global rate of increase has dropped significantly since 2015, when annually it was increasing at 16%. And COVID was a funky time as well because no one was doing anything. So there's a little blip there. But it's not fast enough. So they estimate that to reach this 1.5 degree Celsius limit, which, by the way, is based on this notion that these are tolerable changes at that level that we can adapt to. We're pretty much there now. We see the impacts that are happening, so we can adapt to them. We go to 2 degrees or 2.5 degrees, we start getting, that's close to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. We start getting to a point where large parts of the earth can't adapt, and we have much larger impacts with much larger economic costs by the end of the century and before. So right now, to reach that 1.5 degrees Celsius limit, we need a 42% decline in emissions, not slowing the rate of increase, but a decline by 2030. And if we're going to hit a 2 degrees Celsius target, it's a 28% decline by 2030. So we really need to be bending this curve to the negative, not over the course of the next generation, but starting today. And that's what obviously we're trying to do. The current kind of path we're on will likely get us to about 2.5 to 2.9 degrees by 2100. There's a lot of uncertainties there, right? Because we don't know what path we're on over 70 years. But the current trajectory, business as usual, which is about 4.5 to 5.2 degrees Fahrenheit increase, a very dramatic change. And one last thing I'll mention is the USDA comes out with hardiness zones. Anyone that plants knows the hardiness zones. And they tell us how over a 30-year period, the previous 30 years, what the coldest documented temperatures were. And they tell us, how hardy our plants need to be to survive in these regions. Well, this is shifting. So we're no longer, a lot of Columbia County is no longer 5B rather, it's now 6A. So we've shifted 5 degrees on the cold front, and that trend continues. Our climate is more like New Jersey today, in the Mid-Hudson Valley of 40, 50 years ago. And we're continually moving our state southward toward the Virginias. So that's what I just wanted to start with. And I wanted to start with a pitch, which is whether you're on the task force or not moving forward, let's all commit to doing at least one thing, whether it's writing a letter to the editor, writing a blog, doing a podcast, doing something in the public that talks about these things, that gets beyond our bubble and that gets the word out to people that, in whatever forum and whatever language and whatever message you want, that communicates to people what's happening and what we're doing about it and what the opportunities are when we do these things, and how they can help us economically as we adapt. They can help make for a better quality of life. We're going to talk about the Climate Forum in a minute. And there was a really interesting moment at the end of the Climate Forum where the representative from the Empire Center acknowledged that he has asthma. And he said, regardless of what the impact is for the climate, if we reduce fossil fuels and we eliminate the use of fossil fuels, we're going to make our lives healthier in the immediate term. So there are a lot of benefits that come from the shift in technology. So I'll get off my soapbox, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about these things because we're all about trying to get things done and, not bloviate, not just talk, but it is important and it's an important week and at the end of the year. So if we could all do something, go to a school, talk to the students. One thing, it's a small thing, but it adds up. Plant trees with us in the spring, plant trees on your own. There's a lot of things we can do. And I just want to open it up if anyone has anything else. I think we can take 10 minutes if folks want to speak to this or add anything. Jennifer.
Well, I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but I just wanted to add to this concept that when we think about each degree beyond that target of 1.5, it's not just sort of this linear progression, but it also implies that we start reaching these tipping points and the positive feedbacks start to kick in where For example, right now, the Amazon is getting to the point where it's starting to dry out, and it makes it much harder for it to recover and maintain the, regrowth of a rainforest when there isn't enough rain. Or melting of the Arctic starts to release a lot of methane, so that it's actually, even when we start to roll back our emissions, there's other things that get set in place that are very hard to stop. And so it makes the, 2 or 3 or 4 degrees C threshold, it's the wild cards get thrown in when we get to that stage. So it makes it more dangerous than we can even sort of imagine right now. But I'll just follow by saying, yes, let's keep, there's things we can do so that we don't have to just sort of curl up in bed and pull the covers over our head, because it's so scary to think about.
And one thing on the models that is clear is that, if anything, these climate models, which are projections and can be criticized because they have statistical error, but if anything, they've underestimated the impact as we've moved forward. If you look back at the models from 20 or 30 years ago, they're an underestimate of what we're actually seeing today. Lee, welcome, Lee Jameson.
You're on mute.
Yeah, welcome, Lee.
You're still muted, Lee. Bottom left of those buttons in the middle.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
There you go.
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
So with all these global, pessimistic statements, I think sometimes we lose sight of the little things we can do here in Columbia County. And one of the things that came up in our Stuyvesant Climate Smart meeting the other day was the fact that the recycling sticker cost is going up. And that some people expressed dismay that folks may be reluctant to pay it and go back to throwing stuff out in the ditch. I'll also add that I've been a substitute driver for Recovery Kitchen, and I see a number of people who are getting meals who very definitely look to me like they need help with getting rid of their garbage and trash. Bags and bags of stuff stacked up on their deck or a back porch or, against their house. So I think that that's a problem. And as much as I'm a proponent of zero waste, I don't think zero waste means you never throw anything out. I had learned that in Stuyvesant, if we buy our recycling sticker for the car, the town gets to keep $5 of it. And we were thinking about, is there some way we might be able, number one, to promote that people buy their stickers from their town clerk, and that the $5 might go into a climate smart fund so that we could subsidize people who may feel they can't afford the sticker, or have some sort of pickup arrangement for those of us who do have stickers to help the folks who don't have transportation, and elderly, poor people in Columbia County who don't have transportation. That maybe that's a project that we could consider. I mean, it's really at the brainstorming stage in Stuyvesant at the moment. We don't have any, solutions really, but that's something we wanted to bring to people's attention. And I don't know if the supervisors have any influence over, can there be some subsidy? I mean, there is a little bit of a break for seniors, but maybe not enough. So I just threw that out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. It's great to have you, and thank you for those ideas. I think
I'm filling in for Kathy Schneider today.
yeah. But thank you for the ideas. We'll be in a generative state of trying to create, brainstorm and create more ideas as we go into the new year with the new group. So, and the continuation of many of these good people here. So Brenda,
I just wanted to say on the advocacy front, there is a petition that's been circulated through the Democratic caucus. It's a petition that's directed to elected officials to oppose the expansion of the Iroquois pipeline, which is a fracked gas pipeline. There is information about that available. I can send a link if you're interested, but I think the continued expansion of this pipeline, because of the way it's been framed, will have very little regulatory oversight. And both Michelle Hinchy and Dee Dee Barrett have signed on as leaders of this petition. So you might want to, reach out to your elected officials and see if they are aware of it and if they'd be willing to sign on to it. And then I'd just like to address, Wendy is better equipped to deal with this answer than I, but just from a supervisor's point of view, it was a long and difficult decision about increasing the price of the recycled station stickers. It was not a step that anyone wanted to take, but we have the recycling station. The recycling has cost us far more than we've taken in terms of revenue. And it was getting to the point where we were going to have to make a choice between continuing to offer the service or to increase the price. So I think that in the long run, we determined that it was more important to be able to offer the service. And while we're not at a break-even point by any means, this will at least help us to recover some additional costs. So it was a painful decision, but it was one that we used to extend the life of the program. I remember back however many years ago, maybe Wendy remembers, when we actually used to make money on recycling. But for a number of years, we've been underwriting the cost of recycling to almost a 7-figure number. So it's not, we're not talking about a small number. We're talking about big numbers. Is that substantially accurate, Wendy?
That was wonderful, Brenda. Thank you. Yes, that was completely accurate. The China and the National Sword in 2018, 2019 really kind of put a huge damper on the revenue that we're receiving for recycling at this point. And it's really, really, really hard right now to, have to embrace increasing our permits. Like you said, we definitely did not want to have to do that, but we also want to keep recycling available to the residents that utilize our station. It's not, unfortunately, not every Columbia County resident uses our station. We can't have it offset, through our taxes. We kind of need to be as self-sufficient as possible for our department. So it was not something that we took lightly. It was not something that, we enjoyed doing at all. But as Supervisor Adams did say, our transportation costs, the revenue is decreasing. Our transportation costs are just going through the roof. And we're just trying to at least keep the program as close to breaking even as possible so we can still offer recycling here in Columbia County at our stations.
Jennifer.
Just following up on that, it's another reason to support the bills that are currently proposed in New York State for the responsibility for packaging to be put back on the corporations that are producing it, because then those companies would actually have to pay for recycling in our community. There's no reasons why municipalities should have to pay for all of that packaging. So just FYI.
Yeah. Susan. Hi, Susan.
Hi. Sorry I chimed in late, and this might be slightly off topic, but we're talking about stickers and transfer stations. So our transfer station, which is Gallatin, no longer issues stickers to put on, not recycling, but for regular garbage, because apparently the stickers had been counterfeited, and they're back to selling plastic trash bags of various sizes. So this has come up in our Climate Smart Committee that it doesn't, we understand this is a problem. If they're being counterfeited, it has to be addressed, but it doesn't seem like the most sustainable solution to be reissuing plastic bags. And so we're just wondering if that, if there was a discussion about their solutions, if anyone can think of any, if there would be a way to fund it, you know, so maybe bags that are plant-based, if such a thing exists. Anyway, so that was a concern in our committee. So I just raise it now since we're talking about stickers and garbage.
So we used to be a per bag station, per bag fee. During the COVID pandemic, the resin was unable to, our company was unable to make bags. And then other companies were then no longer to make bags. It became this big thing. So we had no choice but to go to the tag system from the bag system that we initially had. And as you mentioned, there was major counterfeiting happening with the tags, which was really unfortunate, because not everyone is doing the wrong thing, but enough people were doing the wrong thing that it really created a financial nightmare for us. We had to go back to the bags. There's very little way of counterfeiting our bags. Going to a plant-based bag, which is a fantastic type of idea, then makes the bag even less sturdy for the residents. We're already complaining about the quality and quantity type bags that we have already. But it's definitely something that we're continually looking for as we move forward with the bag structure, is how can we get a more sustainable bag and purchase a more sustainable bag, one that maybe is plant-based, one maybe that will biodegrade. So we're always looking for that. We're always talking to the companies that we purchase these bags from to see how we can be a little more environmentally responsible moving forward. But at the moment, you know, we're only allowed to get what they have to offer. You know, we're not in the business of actually producing the bags, which, I mean, if we could, that would be great. But
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you.
So with that, let's shift gears to the climate forum. I don't know how many people, I saw a bunch of people there, but it was a smaller turnout than the one in the spring, unfortunately, because it was a much more balanced, informed, and productive conversation than the one in the spring, which was not endorsed by the county. That was not a county event, that one in the spring. Let's be clear about that. This one was, and Dawn and Brenda and Ron Knott and others did a lot of work to pull it together. I do think it was really informative, really high level, accessible information from that panel of 6 people. And I do think there were quite a number of decision makers, local legislators there. So I do think it had a lot of impact in terms of helping people understand the challenges that we face and the transitions that we're making. And Dawn counted 60 attendees. And more walked in afterwards. So that's good. And I think we can continue doing this. I don't know if anyone who was there wants to add anything about what they observed from the forum or any other comments. Lee.
Yeah, I was there and I agree with you that it was much more balanced compared to the one in the spring. But maybe, you know, that, shall I say, anti-vaxxer crowd has kind of died away a bit. Poor choice of words, but, you know, they don't have the same hot issues like they did before. So that's a plus. I felt that even the folks from the Empire Center, who, you know, we all kind of suspect are lobbyists for the fossil fuel industry. I mean, that was the guy who said he had asthma. So they seem to be in favor of at least cleaning things up, even if they are, you know, promoting things like nuclear power plants, which I think we have to be on the lookout for. I especially appreciated Will Yandick's contributions from the agricultural perspective as to the changes he's seen, and also things like the threats to our dairy farm economy here, and corn growing. Those are very real. I mean, in some ways, we are a bit of a climate oasis here in the Hudson Valley, but there still are hazards. And
Yeah.
he framed them very well, very understandable, and incontrovertible. So that was good.
I think the general overarching focus that I took away was not whether we should be meeting the mandate of the state, the law. It is the law of the land to make this change, but how, and not whether there was not time spent whether it's worth it, whether there's there's kind of implicit. This is about how we do it, and these are the challenges that lay out in front of us and the opportunities that present. And I agree, Leon. He started with an image from 100 years ago or so of the Hudson River frozen solid with a horse on the river on the frozen ice, cutting up blocks of ice. And we all know that there are these old ice house ruins on the sides of the river up here, which are really cool to visit and think about. But we don't have to look at detailed statistical models to see the changes that have occurred over a few generations and the changes that are afoot. We also don't have to speculate as to the impact on farming, for example. The volatility of the weather, it's not just a warming, it's the volatility. And just last spring, we have a longer season because it gets warmer earlier. Typically, we'll have warmer days. So all of our fruit, all the fruit industry here, those trees are flowering earlier. And then there's Will made this point, a longer period of exposure to potential frost. It's not that everything moves forward. It's that we are more exposed to the volatility. And last May, I think it was May 17th, we had a terrible frost. It was 3 hours. And it cost us, I don't know how many millions of dollars, and how much fruit in much of the state. So that's the real cost from an agricultural standpoint. So a lot of good stuff happening in terms of information. Let's get it out there. Let's keep communicating outside of these fora and outside of our task force and our CACs and our CSCs. Let's get the word out. Let's talk to people. I know we're all doing that in our daily lives, so let's continue doing that. Don and then Brenda.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that at the meeting on Saturday, I had one supervisor approach me who had a young CSC task force and just wanted to talk about how he might be able to encourage them to become more active, or how we might be able to help them out. And also the day after, I met with another supervisor for a town that has no CSC task force and isn't a member of the climate smart community, and wanted to talk to me about finding someone in their town to get things started there. So a couple of positive things came out of that, besides just the presentations. So
Yeah, great. Brenda.
And I just wanted to thank Tara, who's on the call, because she was one of the presenters and did an especially good job on Saturday. And the other thing is, I did speak to Mike Tucker. He's reached out to each of the presenters to ask for their slide deck or a copy of their presentation. And when that's available, I'll forward those to Don and see if we can't get them posted. So those of you who were not able to come will at least be able to review the remarks.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Tara, did make sure I got this correct, but you put up a fact that I think we should all be very proud of. She touted Columbia County's efforts, and not this task force, but all of the local efforts that are happening at CSCs and CACs and CECs and you name it, all the local efforts that together add up. And I believe the fact was 25% of the grant money that have come through those programs from the state have come to Columbia County out of a 7-county area. Is that right, Tara?
8-county area. So you guys are absolutely killing it as far as getting money for the region. So yeah, it's a great fact. And a lot of that is the campaigns that the county towns and the county itself have been doing. That brings a lot of money in. So you should definitely pat yourselves on the back for that.
We're gonna, thanks, Tara, and thanks for everything you do. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of work. You're instrumental in all of these efforts and helping us understand these programs and how to actually qualify for these grants. So we all appreciate your efforts and your organization. Really, it's well structured to help this program succeed. That people like you are out there doing this work, coming to all these meetings. I mean, you have a busy schedule, I can only imagine, day and night, weekends. So you're really committed and we appreciate that. Let's move ahead to some good news on this topic of, we're going to skip ahead to the Clean Heating Cooling Campaign update. Christina, are you on the call?
I am. Hi.
All right, great. I believe you might have some news for us.
But I do, yes. Columbia County has reached Tier 3, so you've reached their final level, and you're qualified for all the grants possible for clean heating and cooling.
So Don, tell us what the numbers look like right now for grant money, that new grant money that we've secured. Before that, maybe you want to preface it with the old grant money of what we
Yeah.
the two previous grants and what that went for.
Yeah, so far we have, and I don't have what I sent you before in front of me, Dave, but
I'll pull it up.
we got a $5,000 grant for becoming a designated clean energy community, just by doing four actions under the Clean Energy Communities program. Then we received a $15,000. I believe that was from Tier 1 for the Heat Smart Clean Heating and Cooling program.
Yep.
Which we have applied to the solar panels on the DSS building, the county DSS building. We then got a $15,000 grant for, and I have everything in place to actually send in the actual application probably later today. I'll be able to send everything in. A $15,000 grant to purchase electrified landscaping equipment for the highway garage, solid waste facilities departments, which we received from our community solar campaign, which was like a year ago or so. With this one, we now have the tier 2 clean heating and cooling, tier 3 clean heating and cooling, and a what's called a heat pump demo action, which all I have to do is print out the poster, bring it down to Wendy's office and post it somewhere if she can make room for it on one of her walls. And those three will total somewhere between $120,000 and $150,000 in grant money coming in, depending on where we place where we use these monies. If we use it within the city of Hudson or the town of Greenport, we will get up to $150,000 for those three grants.
And which is fantastic. And we'll talk about how the county plans on using that in a minute. But are there other add-on? I'm greedy, aren't I? Are there other add-on grants that come from clean energy points that we're not counting there, or is that inclusive of the?
No, that's one of them is from a points.
Okay.
If we do that poster, I believe, again, I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay.
I think that one is the one that puts us over a point threshold and qualifies for part of that
Great.
$100,000.
Now, money is great, but we have to spend it. So what is the plan for spending that extra $120,000 to $150,000? The plan right now is, Don, tell us what the plan is.
Yeah, we've been talking. I've been talking to the supervisors and the fleet maintenance committee and the county controller about where, and it's generally agreed upon from the folks that I've talked to that we, there's a limited number of things that we can spend the money on, but they seem to be headed in the direction of purchasing some actual EV vehicles and the chargers that go along with them. We have to decide which vehicles we want to replace, where they would go, what department they would go to, and then once that's decided, which building we have to install the building. So we have to get estimates for the installation cost of those chargers. So there's still some decision making that has to go on, which is why I haven't sent in that documentation, Christina, yet for those grants. So we won't actually be able to apply for those grants until we send in the documentation for the clean heating and cooling campaigns and the heat pump demo. But once we do that, we have a 5-month, the clock starts ticking. We have 5 months to actually get all our stuff together and send in the application, which is why I've been a little hesitant on sending in that documentation yet, because there's still some decisions that have to be made, and that may take more than 5 months to do. So
Thanks, Brenda. You're muted.
I did speak with Supervisor Knott yesterday, and we have prioritized this for the end of this year and beginning of next to try and pull together the pieces that Don needs to go out for pricing and to establish a program. So thank you, Don, and David, for calling this to our attention, and we will be applying ourselves to it very shortly.
Great. There is urgency here in that there are a limited number of grants. So we did qualify, but until we actually apply for the grant, we haven't secured one of them for our county. That happened with the original solar campaign. We were late. So there is a precedent for us not getting our ducks in a row early enough, even though we've done the work and qualified. So, and then as Don pointed out, once you start the clock, you've got 5 months to actually get all of the information out and get the money spent. So Supervisor Adams, thank you very much, and Supervisor Knott for moving this forward, but there's great urgency, and I think everyone understands that. So anything else on the grants or the clean heating cooling campaign? Otherwise we can move ahead. I think, anything else? Okay.
I would just say if anyone wants to do more events for the individual towns that are participating, I know the county's reached their goal, but there are, I believe, 14 towns doing sub campaigns. So if anyone would like to do any events, we actually haven't done any in Columbia County in the last couple of months. So just be in touch and we can send someone out to do a presentation or something like that.
And this campaign, thank you, Christina, would never have been as successful, effective, or fun without Christina and your organization. I mean, we were able to connect with that larger capital region effort, and it allowed us to not put RFPs out, and it just streamlined the whole process and was very effective in helping us move forward from the practical standpoint of helping people connect to actually do the installations and get the work done, to tracking the information and then putting us in a position to have the information available to apply for the grants. So thank you, Christina.
Our pleasure. And as you brought up the solar campaign, I know that had some snafus in implementation, but they are now tiered as well. So that might be something that we want to look at for the county to try to apply for tier 2 and 3. And the Capital Region Clean Energy Hub can partner with you on that as well, if you'd like.
Thank you. The challenge with the solar campaign was, of course, that people signed up across the county and they still are on a wait list, a lot of them. And we unfortunately still haven't gotten really good information as to what that wait list looks like and when people will get off that wait list if they continue to have interest. So a lot of challenges there, and a lot of challenges go to the capacity on the grid and whether these projects are being built. And that goes to kind of the heart of the matter of whether communities are embracing these projects and whether they're being sited in places that are least objectionable. So a lot of challenges that we felt from the consumer standpoint, the solar campaign go all the way back the value chain to the fundamental issue of getting enough renewables on the grid to retire the fossil fuels. And that was a big topic at the climate forum. So let's move ahead to the update on the climate adaptation resilience plan. Audrey, are you on? We have there's another survey out, and so we have make sure I have to get this word out. And Audrey, are you on the call?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Audrey.
Hi. Yes, we have the second survey out, which asks the public generally about what their thoughts are on what a resilient community, their resilient community would look like. And then we also have some questions about potential adaptation strategies that seem to be fitting for what your community might be able to recommend in those plans. And thank you, Don, for sending around the update to everybody. And we had, I think with that, you have the package of promotional materials. We prepped up a social media post that, you know, you can easily get out there. And unfortunately, I don't have an update on numbers, but from what I hear, folks have been taking the survey. And I also have had several requests for print copies for some tabling events. So please reach out to me if you are in need of some print copies, and we can make arrangements to get them out to you if you have an event coming up that you would like to have people be able to do a print copy. And just had a quick update that following the second workshop that we held in the end of October, we prepared some draft vision statements that we have sent back to the climate leaders in your communities to kind of shop around. And if anybody wants to review them and you haven't had a chance or got the drafts, I'd be happy to also send you the drafts. Just reach out to me. So we're looking for you all to kind of go out into your community and get some opinions on what those vision statements, if they seem appropriate, and thoughts and input and feedback on those draft statements that we developed based on the exercises and conversations we had at the workshop. I also did want to mention that the town of Canaan actually held their own small, I'm not sure if it was small, actually. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it, but they held their own kind of visioning workshop or forum, which I think went very well. We helped kind of facilitate the structure for it and stuff. So I'd encourage folks to do that in their own communities if they have the ability to do it. And we had a deadline of the 15th for kind of getting the draft feedback back to us. But, you know, if there's a need for some extra time, we'll certainly, work with your community on that. That's not a super hard deadline. We just like to, encourage folks to get out there and get the feedback with a deadline of sorts. But the survey will be out until the 24th, the day before Christmas. That'll be live until then. And right now we are just working on starting to develop and write up some of the content for the plans themselves. So we'll be pulling kind of all those pieces together. Once we wrap up the survey, we'll be doing some analysis on that and incorporating that. And we should be out there hopefully with some drafts for you all to have out for public comment. I would say probably by the end of January for all of them.
Great. That's exciting.
Sorry.
Thank you. Brenda?
I just want to say that our visioning event was terrific. We chose to invite community leaders from all local organizations, all committees, boards, the fire companies. 75% of the people that came had not participated in any climate event thus far. So we reached out to a lot of people, and they agreed in turn to take back the survey to their different organizations and groups. But it was in an hour. It was a very spirited hour and a half conversation, and in fact, I had several people call me the following day saying what a good time they'd had. They just hadn't imagined that this would, be such a vigorous and interesting conversation. So thank you for helping us prepare for that, and also for realizing that that 25% are the people that had filled out surveys previously and had gone to the 2 workshops. So for them, it was kind of an old subject, but it was really good to bring in new people and new ideas.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would ask is, rather than printing copies of the survey, can you send a digital copy that Don could send to us, and then we could print them as needed?
Absolutely.
Then we could just put them at the town hall counter or something for people to pick up.
Sure.
Okay, but thank you again for your help. It was a great night. We really had a good time.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it. Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Audrey, for the update, for all the work that you're doing on this, and we're excited to continue. Please make sure the word gets out on the survey and people fill it out. I think Brenda made a really good point. New people. So we all talk to each other and the same people very often, and if we can all make an effort to really expand the network of people thinking and talking about these issues. And apparently it can be fun too, according to Brenda. So if you need any tips on that, she'll help you out. So how to make climate fun. So anything else on the CARP? Any other questions for Audrey? Great.
I just have one last comment that one thing we did encourage everybody as they're going out with this visioning statement is to try to also reach those communities that sometimes are underserved or underrepresented. So, we want to make this as inclusive a process as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that Brenda brought up the other day that just came to my mind is heating and cooling centers in the county, right? Didn't you mention that the other day, that there are heating centers for when it's really cold and people may have lost heat, but there haven't been cooling centers, and I think that's changing. Is that right? There's a plan to change that?
Many towns are, and certainly the county is also looking at a Code Blue Center in Hudson. So, but I think it's an important resource to have in many of our towns. So
yeah,
and something that will be has risen to the top as we've had these discussions for the adaptation and resilience plan. So it will be highlighted as well in the plans, without a doubt.
Under any of the models moving forward, a low or a high case scenario, the number of days, heat days, will continue to increase in our region dramatically, which not only affects people, but also reduces photosynthetic productivity dramatically and worse in cases of drought. So a very important part of our adaptation. Don. So you're still muted, Don.
Wasn't sure if I was going to bring this up now or wait till the planning for next year portion of the meeting, but we had a kickoff meeting for a hazard mitigation plan yesterday, and the CARP was mentioned multiple times. Just to let everyone know, I know there was a question of whether, is the county going to really incorporate this CARP into the hazard mitigation plan, and I can say yes, they will. I'm on the core planning team. The CARP was mentioned multiple times. Climate adaptation and climate change was permeated the meeting, so it will. I can definitely say that we do plan on addressing climate change in a real way in the hazard mitigation plan. So just to put that out there.
Good.
That's great. And
Steve.
let me know if you need any resources or something as you're moving forward with that.
I think anything that you've collected, if you've done any additional digital mapping since what I sent you,
Okay. Sure.
I think they would like, I would like to see everything and I can share it with them.
Okay,
Through,
great.
through you. That would be great.
Mr. Powers, good to see you.
You too. How you doing?
Good.
Don, I had a question. Was a consultant hired for the hazard mitigation?
Yes, Ty and Bond is a company that they've hired to help them with
I
that.
and Bond?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Brenda.
I just wanted to say that as we're looking, what came up at our meeting a lot this week was emergency responses. And as we're in the context of heating and cooling, I think we have, most towns are reasonably prepared when it comes to snow emergencies. But the cooling emergencies, the heat related and the flood related emergencies have taken the game to a whole nother level. And many are ill prepared to, I mean, many towns don't have air conditioned structures to begin with themselves, so they don't have a source for that relief. So, you know, those are things that we really do have to pay attention to, is the additional heating days.
Yeah. There's a lot of information out there, which is just as a quick aside, in addition to the plant hardiness zone map, the U.S. Forest Service has done a tree atlas for, this is related, and we're going to then shift to trees, but has done a tree atlas to show the impact on over 100 different species in the eastern U.S. of different tree species and shrubs, and what it was likely to adapt well and what will not, and what is likely to gain new habitat as our climate changes. And one of the factors in that very multivariate analysis is hardiness on the cold side, and also heat days on the hot side, precipitation changes, and it's modeled out under a low and high case scenario for the rest of the century. And then these rankings of adaptability of the tree species are given. It's very detailed, and it's very you can get in there and you can actually look at your area. But the science that underlies that, the number of heat days is going to increase, and they think it's above 86 degrees Fahrenheit is considered a day, the temperature at which photosynthetic productivity in our region starts to decline and other heat stresses begin. But the number of weeks of that type of temperature is expected to expand dramatically from 2 to 3 weeks currently to a couple months of hot temperature within a few decades. So it's coming fast and furious. I'll put that link for the tree atlas in the chat, and also writing a blog on it. So I'll send that around when that's done. So let's shift to trees. Now that we're talking about trees, my favorite topic. And Brenda brings up a good point. What will that do to the sugar maple industry? Well, Acer saccharum is a tree that is actually, according to this atlas, has some adaptability to the region, but certainly there's a northern migration or higher elevation migration of adaptability. And one of the biggest problems with any of these adaptations is the pace at which these changes are occurring is a matter of decades. The pace at which natural evolution occurs is many, many tens and hundreds of thousands and millions of years. So the reality of, sometimes you hear people say, oh, well, in the past, temperatures have changed by more than what we're experiencing now. Yes, that's true. Will Yandick referenced one of those events 50 million years ago. That happened over tens of thousands of years. Tree species, and other plants and animals can adapt to some extent over long periods of time with major changes, and new species can migrate and move in. I can't remember the statistic on how many miles a decade a tree can adapt, a species can adapt. So the point is, if we're not actively bringing in these new species and actively reforesting, and this is part of our adaptation and mitigation, then we're not going to see our forests adapt. As much as it might be possible for certain species to become more hospitable or more habitable in this area, it's not going to happen on its own. It's going to require a lot of dedicated effort. So to that end, in a very small way, but hopefully the beginning of a new effort, a bunch of us have been organizing a tree planting initiative for the spring around Earth Day or Arbor Day. And there's a group of us that are working on it. We've identified different locations. We've gone out and visited. We've been to Hudson High School and the lower school in Hudson. We've been to Columbia Green. We've also visited the Charles Williams Park in Hudson, near where the Empire Trail cuts down and terminates, and then some other land that the Land Conservancy is likely to get in a bargain sale from the Hudson IDA, the Industrial Development Authority, I think it's called, and we've evaluated these areas, and we're in the process of finalizing kind of a selection. It looks like, and we also visited Sweet Freedom Farm, which is a nonprofit farm in Germantown that works to provide food for the families of incarcerated people. Has a great mission and is very community oriented. And the focus here is youth, community activism, and getting trees in the ground, and teaching people how to plant trees, how to take care of young trees. So Hudson High School seems to be the locus of the focus of our energy right now. Doesn't mean these other sites won't be potentially future sites, but that is an area where we've got a lot of support, and there's a large field behind the football stadium. In between that and the solar panels, if anyone knows, it's on a plateau, beautiful views of the Catskills, but it's a large accessible area, and that's probably what we're going to be designing out to plant in the spring. It'll be a volunteer planting effort, and should be fun. Once we get beyond this planning stage, there'll be much more of an opportunity to promote it, get the word out, and turn it into a spring event that we can all participate in. So happy to answer questions now or offline on that, but that is just something to tentatively kind of pencil in there. One other thing, it looks like the Partners for Climate Action that had restoration grants last year, I think it was somewhere at $300,000 or $400,000 of grant money went out to I don't know how many, couple dozen projects perhaps, and those projects are now being implemented. They are likely to have another round of restoration grants hopefully next year that continue this effort. So more on that to follow. Okay, that covers everything. We have one item here, a couple more items. The workforce training opportunity. Christina, there's something you want to tell us about that? When Christina's back, we'll try to get her on for that.
Hi, sorry, I'm here.
Oh, that's okay.
Yes, so part of what the Clean Energy Hub does is the residential outreach and education around, heat pumps, technology, air sealing, insulating homes. And another branch is workforce development and making sure that all of these new clean jobs go to people who need the most, particularly disadvantaged communities. So we were trying to think of some places in Columbia County that would be good to do outreach. They are planning, I'm not on the workforce development side of our hub, but I work with them closely, and they're planning climate career forums. The first one will be in Troy in the spring, and then we were hoping to do one in Hudson possibly the following fall. So we met with Don last week to just kind of talk about who else we should be talking to. We also met with Columbia Green and the mayoral aide, Michael Hoffman, And there were some previous connections at Basilica Hudson, but we would just like to be kind of in conversation about the best ways to plan this out and what the needs of the community are for getting youth particularly into kind of above average paying jobs in this new economy. So if anyone has ideas or wants to be in touch on working on a project like that, my email's christina@cleanenergycapitalregion.org. And I'll put that in the chat.
Thank you, Christina. Really important, along with a lot of the local efforts on housing, also equally important for our future here. Dawn, do you have an update on the greenhouse gas inventory that's going on? Sounds like you do. Dawn, you're muted. There you go.
I assume you're talking about the one we've been meeting with CDRPC, the regional. Yeah. Well, again, we met with them November 29th up at their office. I think this is again as part of our planning for next year program. We've decided to meet like twice a month, I believe, Tara. Our next one is going to be December 13th. One of the things that I see that will help us locally is this idea of a dashboard that may be continually updated, providing detailed information on community greenhouse gas emissions for each municipality around the counties. Because I have received a couple of emails asking about that, and explaining how difficult some of that information is to come by. So I think that's going to be I see it as one of the benefits coming out of this this program. But also just being in the meetings and hearing what the other counties are doing it gives me a lot of ideas of what we might be able to do here in Columbia County. Because some of these counties have climate action plans in place already. Columbia County doesn't. I think we may, it would be nice if we could start developing one for our county. So I think right now it's just like generating a lot of ideas in my head about what we might be able to do in the future.
Yeah, well, that's a good pivot to the final topic, which is planning for next year. And wanted to give people a few minutes to opine and share ideas for. We'll be developing these, over the course of the coming months. But what are the new projects that we want to work on? Some of it you've heard. There's the CARP. We're talking about restoration and being in the community, communication, climate action plan. I think I'll just start, but I think that should be a big focus of ours. We will be getting a lot of information on from the greenhouse gas inventory that's being done, which will update us on what's happened over the last decade or so in terms of our emissions in the county. And we also are in a position where we have access to technologies, and they're more readily available than ever before. And we're a place with a lot of natural resources, a lot of important carbon sinks, a lot of natural sinks and sources like agriculture. So there are a lot of interesting opportunities for us to be thinking about mitigation strategies that go beyond just a technology shift. And I would like to start a process with perhaps a subset of this group and the continuation of this group, where we do what Donna's suggesting, which we start generating ideas around what are the strategies we want in a climate action plan. We start reviewing other counties and municipalities' climate action plans. We look for the best few. We read them. We comment on how we'd like to structure a plan for Columbia County. A lot of folks hire a consultant, and we may need to do that. But I think the best opportunities with consultants come from a body that is well-informed and really knows what they want to get out of the consultancy. The worst are the ones where the folks spend all the time recruiting and vetting, and then they say, great, we've done our job. Now the consultant will come in from who knows where with whatever knowledge, and they should benefit from all of our local knowledge. So I'd like to start that. That's one idea I'll put out there that I'd like to put forward as a priority. We're not taking votes. We're just generating ideas right now. And then we're going to put that forward in the new year and create some structure around it. But wanted to open it up if folks have any other ideas that they'd like to share. Again, this is really what type of projects and issues could this task force play a meaningful role on? This is not what could we do in Columbia County at large in general. Steve.
So I'm sure you're aware, but there's 2 climate action plan actions in the CSC. One is climate action plan for government operations, and one is for the county. So as a whole. So I don't know if when you talk about the climate action plan, were you just talking about for the government operations or for both or
For the
what?
community. I think you go big or you go home, Steve. So the idea here is you've got, it may take us a while, but you've got a greenhouse gas inventory that's being done community-wide. That Don is working on a government operations greenhouse gas inventory, which is also important as a subset of what we do as a community. But because this multi-county effort is updating our Columbia County community greenhouse gas inventory from 2010, or the last time it was done, the first time, I believe, that gives us an opportunity to look at trends and sources of emissions for the whole community. And we can then, from that, develop a plan, a community plan. I think that should be our goal. A subset of that is the government operations, of course, and that's the part that Columbia County as a government has the most control over, the most easy opportunity to impact. But I do think we should be thinking more broadly.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I think it's probably an easier task to accomplish to deal first with the government operations. And we've done that here. So we just completed the government operations plan, and we'll work on, the town plan as a whole later. But it's and figuring out what your greenhouse gas emissions are at the for government operations is a lot easier, I think.
Well, the good news is we'll have both. We'll have data from the government operations and from the community, and I think that your experience in New Lebanon and the other kind of leaders in the county will help guide us in how we approach this. So I hope that, Steve, you can join our efforts in developing these ideas. We'll certainly be relying on your experience there. Okay, I saw a couple hands go up and down. So they're down. Don.
Make one other suggestion too. Why
Yeah.
not an EV campaign as well? I mean, there's a lot of people are buying EVs now, so we're missing out on all those purchases in effect for getting the next for getting a grant there.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think you're right. We should that'll be squarely on the list. We've certainly done the other campaigns well, so it makes sense. John. Hi, John.
Yeah, hi. We're in our sort of latter stages of the climate action plan for government operations, and we've been talking a little bit about how do we move towards the community. And one of my thoughts is that the CARP model makes a lot of sense, that if whatever the sort of the steering group that is involved in it for the county, that we look for ways to have local groups fill in some of the pieces, or sort of model how to start working on different pieces of it, so that it's a huge thing to do for a community. And so communities can sort of pick pieces of it that they want, or climate smart communities can pick off pieces of it that is of particular interest to them and the volunteers there. But anyway, I just sort of like to see that kind of template developed.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a good idea. Done.
Okay, I'm not muted. Okay. Again, going back to the hazard mitigation plan, the other thing that I remember that came up again multiple times was the need for local representatives from each of the municipalities in the county, because this isn't just a countywide plan, it's also a municipal. Each municipality has a part in this hazard mitigation plan, but they really want contacts from each of the municipalities, and they mentioned Climate Smart Committee members or Climate Smart community members to be involved, because they see them as folks that are sort of long-term contacts rather than political supervisors and town board members who may come and go, but they would like to also have like secondary contacts directly with the Climate Smart community folks at the municipal level to have some input on the plan. So if anyone is interested in getting involved in the hazard mitigation plan at all, I can relay that information to them.
Thanks, Don. So let Don know, please, if you have interest or you know people in your towns that might be interested in participating. All right. Well, if there are other ideas, keep them coming. You can email them to us, and we will move forward. We have a lot of things that are in process here, and we will also be in touch shortly about the transition to the new task force. I know many of us will be on that task force as well. For those that are not, thanks for participating in this effort. Terrence.
Hey, thanks. I just wanted to say, I think I had emailed the supervisors on this task force that CLC would be happy to stay on as part of the advisory committee. So I don't know what the next step would be for that, but I imagine it'd be a conversation with this group and then to the county supervisors.
Thank you. It's a good reminder. I mean, the task force is now, because of the bylaws, the supervisors had passed requiring a nominee from each town, as opposed to the way we did it in the past. And that means that, people have been nominated, hopefully from most towns, kind of like the EMC model. But it also provides for an advisory council. And I mean, we've had that too. So people like Christina and Tara and Audrey have continued to participate. Thank you, and do really some of the most meaningful work of that we've been involved in. And I think that will continue, but that doesn't limit us from having other active participants. And to be honest, there's not a big distinction between that and a member of the task force, because we're all doing work together. And we, at the end of the day, we don't really have any official authority. We have, it's not like we're taking votes and passing laws. We're making recommendations. So we have no budget. We have Don. So we have some staff, but we are really all about the ideas we can generate and how we bring those ideas forth into the world. Really will take a group of people, including hopefully Terrence. Hopefully you're continuing on CLC's behalf. But anyway, thank you all for participating. If there's anything else, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll be in touch about how we transition in the new year. Happy holidays. Hope everyone is healthy, and I hope it snows. I hope the ground freezes, and yeah, everyone stay well. And thanks again for all your efforts.
Thank you, David, too. I've really appreciated your leadership. You're a great meeting organizer. It's been great to be in meetings with you, because you keep things moving, and I appreciate that. And your vision is really useful too.
Well, that's very kind of you. We all are busy people, so we need to be efficient, right? Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.